What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I'm going to be bringing you my overview of the Sheepdog XL and the Kizer Clairvoyant. Let's go ahead and get into it. So these two came in together, and there's a method to my madness. I wanted to do these together because the Kizer Sheepdog and the XL and the Mini have all been reviewed on this channel, and I am going to link those for you at the top early on, because if that's what you're really interested in, go and check those out. They're more in-depth review. Today I am going to start with the Kizer Sheepdog XL. No size comparisons or anything like that. It's a big knife. Like, I don't think anyone really needs a comparison of a big knife. So what we're going to do is the XL Premium is titanium, a lot of steel. We're going to weigh it, coming in at just under 8 ounces. So heavy guy, big boy, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about the knife a little bit, and then we're going to move on to the Clairvoyant. You got a beautiful black wash blade. Kizer does a phenomenal job with their blades in S35VN. You got a fantastic edge from the factory. They do a really good job with their edges, and for such a big knife, this is relatively thin. I mean, it is not a thick blade. Tall flat grind that goes about 3/4 of the way up and then flattens, and then you have a swedge out on the top so it doesn't catch anything. This to me is a statement piece, big knife that is going to perform. Now, something new that they've done a little bit different from the original XL is, instead of building multiple models, they added the ability to remove the flipper tab, which I think is genius, because that gives you a nice forward choil. You're going to be able to choke up into a position when this is off where you can easily move up and choke up on the knife, and you got nice control, and it all of a sudden feels much more balanced. Sorry, I just hit my table trying to flip it over to show you guys, but it ends up feeling much more balanced in this position. Could they have made it a little bit smaller and you could, just have the dedicated choil? Of course, but some people are going to like that flipper tab. So you want the ergos back here to feel very comfortable, and they do. It feels really thin, and again, I have much larger hands, so for me this is very comfortable, but I think all the way down to a medium hand, you're probably going to be right up in here, and it's going to feel large. There's no getting around that. Again, good access to the frame lockup coming in at about 50%. You're able to get in here and use that flipper tab, and even without the flipper tab, you would have the dedicated choil to stop it, and it is just going to fall shut. All of that S35VN is just, gravity's begging it to take it down. Now, the opening hole is a little big. You can get your whole finger in there, and I don't think that it's necessary, but what I do like about that is if you want to thumb deploy, it's actually very comfortable for that. So with the opening hole, I just find coming up here a little bit and kind of using the top part of that, very, very comfortable. My finger doesn't want to fall in there, and I get very snappy action. For a big knife with such a heavy blade, it has a great detent. It is very well tuned. Lock bar pressure, very well tuned. I even love the fact that they just didn't do a coated handle. They did a black wash on that, and I think that really complements the blade and how it looks. The jimping on here for the flipper tab, if you like it, looks really good. Personally, I think this is just going to be cleaner, and I would remove the flipper tab. The titanium pocket clip on here is very well done. The milling on here and that black wash matches the rest of the handle. The hardware matches up really well, and I think it has the appropriate amount of hardware for such a large knife. So very nice knife. I will throw the price up there for you if you're interested in this one. Let me know in the comment if you're going to pick it up. I will leave a link to Kizer, and I will leave a link to Blade HQ, who will probably have this in stock, and I will also leave it to White Mountain Knives for you guys to decide which one you want to go with. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Cormorant. Now the Cormorant is a little bit of a different animal. I do want to do a full overview of this one, starting with size comparison. So let's go ahead and bring out the Echo from CJRB. As you can see, this one is going to be a little bit longer, but it's going to have that same type of slender profile. And we're going to bring out the Sin Cut Serene, which is going to actually just be a little bit shorter in the handle, but a little bit longer. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong knife. So the Cormorant is going to be longer than the Serene as well, but the Serene is going to be more hand filling, and in my opinion, it's going to have a little bit better ergos. I'm going to leave the Serene on the table for a moment because I do want to come back to that. I do want to talk about something about the Serene that compares well to the Cormorant, and we're going to bring out the Mordax, which is another large knife, and we're going to bring out the Bug Out, which is a slender knife that is a little bit shorter overall. And again, I'm going to leave the Mordax out here because this is going to be part of the conversation here in a little bit. Moving the Bug Out of the way, we'll do our last two size comparisons. That is going to be the AD 20.5, and we're going to bring out the Shaman, which is a very big knife in my collection, full size for me. And as you can see, the Cormorant is actually just a little bit longer overall in length. Let's go ahead and move these out of the way. I'm not going to worry too much about profile comparisons right now. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into my review of the Cormorant. Let's kick it off with a little bit of a weight here. So titanium, marble carbon fiber overlay, titanium backspacer, titanium pocket clip. I'm assuming steel hardware because it's not, yeah, steel hardware all throughout. So steel hardware coming in at just under 4 ounces. So even though it is a slender knife, it is relatively heavy. Let's talk about ergos. Ergos on this one for me are a little bit of a miss. Why, you might ask? It's really skinny in the hand. So for me, it's not always in the best position for me to cut with. It feels really skinny, and it's not giving me a lot of confidence in hand to actually hold this knife. Now again, that I'm going to preface it, that's because I have large hands. If you have medium hands, medium to large even, potentially with the smaller side of the large, you're probably going to be all right. I hang off the back a little bit here, which is not that big a deal. I have knives that, you know, I hang off the back like that a little bit, but I just feel like it's a little bit of a wasted space. I feel like if they would have elongated this out and just had this all be handled out to a little bit further, aesthetically, how would that have looked? It wouldn't have matched the cut on the blade, but it would have given you a little bit more space here. But the blade to handle ratio is fantastic because of that. So it's like a catch-22. Ergos for me are just okay, right? A little bit of a miss, not very confident. I can hold the knife, and at least there's enough real estate for me to grab onto, but it just feels so gosh darn skinny in hand. I wish it was just actually just a skosh thicker throughout the knife. For me, it would have been great, but I think other people, medium hands or people that don't like big knives, are going to love the fact that this has a slender handle because it's still going to feel comfortable to them because they do like those smaller profiles. Now, while we're down here on the handle, let's talk about the pocket clip. Pocket clip is a little thick. It does bullnose a little bit going into the pocket. Sometimes it catches and it doesn't want to feed down. So I think what they probably could have done with this is just angled it slightly different and would have gone in the pocket fine. But the retention's good. It stays in the pocket well, and it goes all the way up to the space and real estate that's available for it to go into with no issues. And it's very cleanly laid in there. It has not moved up and down or side to side, whichever way you want to call that. It looks like there was a lanyard pin in here. I guess it wasn't reinstalled on disassembly. So there is a spot potentially, it looks like, for a lanyard pin. I don't know if it was just because this was going to be a pass around, if that got missed or something like that. I like that the designer logo is on the 3/4 backspacer. I think that looks really clean, and I like that aesthetic. I would have liked to have seen, with it being titanium, not have these steel liners. They could have just put the washers in here, and I think they probably even could have just done like a 3/4 steel if they needed that to reinforce the button lock and that stop pin. You know, I don't think you needed to go all the way down. I think you could have inset it, and I think it would have saved some weight, and I think it would have cleaned up the design, and you could have thickened up the titanium, and you could have had the titanium go the full length of the knife and even created standoffs. I mean, that's just nitpick stuff, but that's just my opinion of some things that they could have done different. On this one, it has a little bit of lock stick, and it doesn't want to fall. you got to kind of push it to get it going. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm hitting the button and it doesn't want to fall right away. So I don't know if it got disassembled. I don't know that I can hold that against the knife. Now let's get to the thumb studs. I really like these thumb studs. They work really nice. They are the appropriate size and dimension for the knife. I think they did a great job. Access to the thumb studs are also really nice for the thumb flick and the reverse flick, and you can use, even though it takes a little bit longer because it's a longer blade, you can use the button lock to go ahead and deploy that if you like that type of deployment. It feels a little awkward and sluggish, but again, I don't know if that's because it was disassembled and it was over tightened in the pivot. I don't know what's going on with that, and I don't want to, get hung up on that too much. I love this blade shape. It has a fantastic factory edge. It has an outstanding stone wash. This stone wash is really well done. I love that. They are nailing that and hitting that out of the park. And again, they're 154 cm and S35EN and all those steels that are like mid to mid upper really seem to be well done. Anything that I've encountered that I've had for a long time seems to hold an edge really well, and it has a really generous sharpening choil. I think some people would say if you had smaller hands you could potentially choke up on that, but for me it's just a sharpening choil and that's it. Now I think that's everything. Ceramic bearings in the pivot. I did want to compare the action and the button to the Serene first. So the action on here, again, okay. A little hint of lock stick. Nothing horrible going on with the Cormorant. Now with the Serene, detent feels snappier and it immediately falls shut. Watch me push that button and watch it drop. Immediately falls shut. Now I've checked both these knives before we started. No up and down, no lock rock. Same thing with this one. No up and down, no side to side. This one here has just a little hesitation before it falls. Could be the tuning, and it does not feel nearly as snappy as the Serene. The Serene has a really snappy detent. Now, ProTech Mordax has had this system in play a little bit longer. Now, thumb stud to flipper tab is going to be a little bit different, but you see that action, it drops shut. Again, it could be the tuning. But, and Kizer usually does, well, I've had I've had 2 other bad examples of button locks from Kizer, but I've also had like 10 good ones. So luck of the draw, and that does happen in production. But I truthfully feel like the Mordax and even the sub $50 Serene with the aluminum, super lightweight, and actually I think it might be the lightest on the table. So what did we say? This was a 4-ounce knife, sub 4 ounce, just under. So 3.9. I think the Mordax is the next heaviest, coming in at the 3.6. So relatively close. And then you come over here to the Serene and 3.4. Yeah. So the lightest out of the bunch, but the most presence out of the bunch. I just think it's crazy. And it talks about how good and how far Civivi and Sencut has evolved in the button lock game. I would actually say, because for the longest time I felt like ProTech was untouchable, and I would say that now that we're talking about, man, I would say they're closing the gap way more so than what you're seeing from Kizer. Now, one other knife that I do want to mention that I didn't bring out here is actually going to be the button lock CJRB Echo. While I do say Civivi's detents on their button locks feel better than CJRB, CJRB is closing the gap on the detent, and the overall performance of the engagement, disengagement. Now, both of these are relatively new because I just came back from Blade Show like 4 days ago. So I haven't had them a full week, which is why there's no review yet. So this one could break in. Probably does need to break in. But CJRB with that Echo, I didn't need a break-in period. It was like that from the moment I left the show. Now, both of these were on display. So both of them were played with plenty, so they could be there. But for me, the Cormorant is a pass. I would go with something else that was more hand-pleasing, that had better button lock action. Aesthetically, I like it. It's a very cool looking knife. If it was just a little bit chunkier and a little bit lighter, I think I would actually really like to pick one of these up. But for me, this is just not my bag. I probably would look at something else. Even if you like Kizers, I'd probably look at a different model. But what I am curious about, would you pick this one up? Have you picked this one up? Do you like it as much as the day that you got it? Or did you just get it, and how much are you enjoying it? What's your experience with yours? Again, this is a pass around, so some of the stuff that I picked on a little bit could be because it may be that it was taken apart or adjusted or this or that. So, you know, there is that caveat. But the ergos for me and the size and just how it feels in my larger hands just are not appealing. I would pass on this one. I would look for something else, regardless of what brand or whatever it is that you like. But again, I'm more curious about your opinion at this point, so leave them down in the comments and let me know. Shout out to everyone out there that leaves the likes, that is commenting, and is subscribed. I love you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.